Welcome to Doing Philosophy, where we're engaged in studying epistemology, another video in our series on our course on epistemology. Right now, I want to complete the discussion on the connection between reality and knowledge. And for this, the basic idea here is that when you're going to do epistemology, this is my recommendation, try to focus on metaphysics first, understand what is real for you, right? Get that basic understanding. Once you understand the most fundamental of all basic questions, all right, that reality deals with existence, right? When you look at it like that, you may not have resolved the problem of whether or not God exists or not. You may not have resolved the problem whether or not the Higgs boson, the God particle, exists or not, or that strings and string theory actually exist or not. You may not have resolved those issues because there are a lot of material constructs, right? But you do know ordinary existence, and you have the social belief of necessary existence. From that, you have two types of truth. And as illustrated with our previous conversation, this leads us to two types of truth within epistemology. This gives us the framework for looking at knowledge in two different ways, two categories of knowledge. One type of knowledge says to us that it's called necessary knowledge because it's based on necessary truth. Another type of knowledge is called empirical knowledge because it's based on contingent truth. But we like to use the word empirical because empirical means experiential truth. So one type of knowledge is based on experience, life experiences, and the other is based on these necessary truths, which are often seen as logical analyses. I want to further break this down, right? Suppose I would take my truths and map it all one-on-one. What would I be expecting or wanting from that, all right? I can have a priori knowledge that's based on a priori reasoning. I know that the computer was placed on that desk before I entered the room. It's because I just entered the room first time. Analytical knowledge. I know that bachelors are unmarried men. Simply, I know things in virtue of the analysis of the meaning of the words involved. In some situation, that is very, very true. Innate knowledge. I know I like ice cream, right? And so I can talk about myself because I have an intuitive sense of me liking or not liking ice cream. I'm using knowledge in the common sense view. I am being definitive. A posteriori knowledge about the future. As a philosopher, when I talk about knowledge about the future, and I want to say with certainty, I'm going to say 7 times 7 is 49. 9 times 9 is 81. I could look at it as mathematical truths. I can say matter can be neither created nor destroyed. There are many abstract entities, okay, that I can postulate about the future. But whether or not water will boil 100 degrees Celsius, as mentioned before in previous videos in this course here, my confidence level on the scientific theory that water boils 100 degrees Celsius at sea level is so strong that I will often say that I know water boils 100 degrees Celsius when I'm speaking ordinarily in ordinary situation. But this notion of a posteriori knowledge about the future haunts me a little bit in the back of my mind. So ordinarily, I would say that. But when I get philosophical or I'm looking at some scientific research in detail, I go back to my construct. Knowledge about the future is very, very vague and obscure. Synthetic knowledge about whole. Okay, do you understand what Buddhism happens to be? Do you understand what democracy is, the Democrats are, or the Republicans are, right? Knowledge about the whole. This is complex. It's like knowing someone. When you know someone, it's a synthetic truth. They're not a fact. Seeing their faces, knowing their name doesn't mean you know the person. People are synthesis of all their past, all that they say, all that they do. They're synthetic beings, and you know them. You can know their existence, as a matter of fact, but you know them by an assimilation, which means it's complicated. It's almost like knowing the claim about water boiling 100 degrees Celsius. Empirical knowledge, that's knowing the facts, what I can see, hear, touch, and smell, that's not controversial at all. In fact, many people don't even like to put empirical knowledge as contingent truth. They want to say it's like an absolute truth. This is necessary knowledge. Yes, in the moment. In the moment, your computer monitor in front of you, you know for certainty. But if you leave the room, how do you know it's there? You're trusting in your memory. Do you have a vague recollection or clear recollection? Because now it's a knowledge based on memory. And today, knowledge can be challenged at that time. All right. So empirical knowledge is treated as contingent knowledge. If we develop a proper, bona fide, broad definition of knowledge, like the philosophers want, it should be able to keep all the senses of these of how knowledge is. And the common sense view I give of knowledge about being definitive, objective criterion is working in the background. Remember, you're part of the educational system. You went to the high school and everything else, which is influenced by all these philosophers. So these theories have been taught to you in an indirect way already. Without the name of the philosophers, you've already been internalized these truths, right? So a good, broad definition of knowledge will contain all these senses of knowledge, right? And I do believe this, a general definition of knowledge is probably not something that can be written as is the general definition of truth. But let me go ahead and continue and finish this section. In epistemology, there is a major division of how to truly define knowledge. And this is a division between the rationalists and the empiricists. The rationalists say that a genuine definition of knowledge should be based on necessary truth, while the empiricists say a genuine definition of knowledge should be based on experience. The rationalists we're going to look at in this course are Plato, Aristotle, and Descartes. They are the major rationalists that established rationalism within philosophy. And currently in the modern time, there are schools, universities that identify with rationalism, and that's the way they still think that there's still a debate about how to properly define knowledge in philosophy itself, and there's still ongoing discussion. And they begin with these philosophers here, and now they have all kind of modern version of rationalism. Empiricism, on the other hand, is the view that knowledge should be based on experience. And this theory emerges when science has caught the mind of the intellectuals and the philosophers take to experience to explain the world. Empiricism exists since the time of Plato and Aristotle. Since the ancient time, they discuss empiricism, but they put it aside, they devalue it for the sake of the rationalist approach, because they want absolute certainty in their claim of knowledge, because they want to know what reality was. Empiricism emerges at a time when people becoming familiar with science and the scientific way of getting to knowledge, and the philosophers internalize this notion of empiricism, and develop the empiricist way. So we have John Locke, George Berkeley, and David Hume, who are going to provide their empirical version of how to use experience to define knowledge. Last but not least, the last school is called skepticism. In this particular area, in this course, I'm not going to discuss any particular skeptic, but skepticism is a view that the acquisition of knowledge is impossible. We cannot know anything. The rationalists can't have certainty, the empiricists can't have certainty, the mathematician can't have certainty, the scientists can't have certainty, the theologians, religious folks, the theologians can't have certainty. So skepticism is the view that we can't know. I'm not going to go in depth in this particular course on it, for the primary reason that skepticism entails a contradiction. For the skeptics to be bona fide school, they have a claim of knowledge. They say no one knows anything. No one can know anything. Not now, not in the future. That is, they can't be certain about whatever claim they make, right? Well, you ask the skeptic, how do you know that? The skeptic is stuck. If they claim they could be very certain that people don't know anything, then they have a certainty, which is knowledge, which is classical. So their only option is to say, I don't know that no one knows. Because if they go the other way, they create a contradiction. And if they go the other way, they're uncertain, which opens the door back to the rationalists and empiricists to figure out their theories. Skepticism entails a contradiction. A properly established skeptic can say, no one knows. And when you challenge them, you can say, I don't know either. They don't know, I don't know. So you don't know. So therefore, you just don't participate, right? And so the skepticism is like that. I find there's a bit of frustration in it, in the sense that that contradiction nullifies their position.